I am not there here. Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. This will be the fourth session on Indian economy. This is an initiative to help you to clear the UPSC Prelims examination for the year 2022 named Target Prelims. Now before I start the discussion, if you have not yet subscribed to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS, kindly do hit the bell icon so that whenever the sessions are conducted, you will get the notification regarding that. With this particular caveat, let me begin the discussion for the day. The first question is this. Consider the following statements. First statement, government provides a subsidy on DAP, MoP and urea. DAP, MoP and urea basically are nothing but the three types of fertilizers. Very important for UPSC exams. The government provides the subsidy on DAP, diammonium phosphate, MoP, muriate of potash, and the third one is urea. Now these are named basically taking the most important component that is present in these particular fertilizers. For example, in case of urea, the most important fertilizer is nitrogen. In case of a diammonium phosphate, it is phosphorus, and in muriate of potash, it is potassium. Now why these particular fertilizers are very important? Understand this. One, in case of India, a huge amount of working population is concentrated in agriculture sector. And in agriculture sector, there is always a very high demand for fertilizers. And the problem starts from there. We do not produce all the fertilizer that is required within the domestic market. We import a lot of these particular fertilizers from the international market. Hence, whenever there is, let's say, volatility in the exchange rate, whenever there is rising prices of the components of the fertilizers or the fertilizers itself, it will have a direct impact on the import value, and there is also a direct impact in terms of, let's say, market prices. Now that is the precise reason, in order to control these particular market prices, Government of India provides lot of subsidies for the producers as well as the importers of these particular fertilizers. The first statement, government provides subsidy on DAP, MoP and urea. Statement 1 is correct. Okay, statement 1 is correct. Second statement, for the above subsidy is provided under nutrient based subsidy regime, NBS. Now what is this particular concept of a nutrient based subsidy? Whenever you are talking about the subsidies, understand this, you can divide these fertilizers into two groups. One side you can put urea and the other side you can put P and K fertilizer. That is a diammonium phosphate and a muriate of potash. Now before I go forward, I just want to give you a small homework. Yes, the first statement is correct. Government provides the subsidy on all the three. And the third statement, India imports above mentioned fertilizer. Even that particular statement is true, because I've already told you production is very less compared to the demand, hence we import. But let me give you a very small homework here. Out of these three, which one is not manufactured or produced in India and completely imported into India? I'll repeat the statement. Out of these three, which one is not produced and completely imported into India? Try to find out that. Come to this. For the above subsidy is provided under nutrient based subsidy regime. By the way, nutrient based subsidy, in short, NBS. In short is NBS. The concept of nutrient based subsidy was introduced from the year 2010. From the year 2010, and this has been one of the very important methodologies using which Government of India provides a subsidy for the P and K fertilizers, the diammonium phosphate and the muriate of potash. The fertilizer subsidy is provided based on the concept of the nutrient based subsidy. What about urea then? In case of urea, based on the cost of production, government would provide a subsidy. How? Imagine you're a producer of urea. Let's start the circus now. Imagine you're the producer of urea and I'm the government. You have produced urea and per bag you want to sell it in the market at, let's say, 1000 rupees, including profit. You want to sell it at 1000. But I will tell you, please do not sell it at 1000, although I will not use the term please, but anyways, government doesn't use the term please, right? So I will tell you, please do not sell it at 1000 rupees. It will cost a lot for the farmers. Instead, what you do is, you sell it at, let's say, 300. I'm just throwing an arbitrary number here. In fact, in the market, urea bag, or let's say a bag of urea will cost you somewhere around 270 or 260 rupees like this. So I will ask you to sell it at 300. Now you will tell me, sir, I want to sell it at 1000, but you are telling me to sell at 300. I am going to incur a loss of 700. Government says, please don't worry, I will give that 700 as a subsidy for you. So in the context of urea, remember this, government decides what is the maximum retail price, at what price you are supposed to sell, government decides it. And whatever is the difference between the cost of production and the MRP, government will provide this as a subsidy for fertilizer producer. That is in the context of urea. What about the diammonium phosphate as well as a muriate of potash? In case of these kind of fertilizers, there is a methodology called as a nutrient-based subsidy. Nutrient-based subsidy. Look at the name, you will understand. Nutrient-based subsidy, right? What do you mean by this? Whatever nutrients are there in the fertilizer, how much is the quantity of nutrients, that will determine how much a subsidy will be provided by the government. I'll repeat it. What is the quantity of the nutrients within this particular fertilizer, that will determine how much will the subsidy provided by the government. And please do not mug up these numbers. Let's assume for a particular nutrient, government of India will announce, let's say X rupees, government will announce, let's say 10 rupees per kg. That is the nutrient based subsidy regime. So how the government will decide? You will produce, let's say 100 kg of the fertilizer. Out of 100 kgs, let's say you have consumed nutrient X, how much? Let's say 50 kgs. So 50 kgs is the consumption of nutrient. Per kg is 10 rupees. So 50 into 10, 500 rupees will be the subsidy given to you by the government. And remember this, either you talk about urea or you talk about diammonium phosphate, government doesn't provide the subsidy to the farmers as of now. Although the UPSC will try to confuse you like this. They will say fertilizer subsidy is brought under the concept of direct benefit transfer. And your mind says a direct benefit transfer means give it to farmers directly. Absolutely no. Direct benefit transfer is the name of the program. It is not a subsidy. I can understand. DBT is the name of a program. Under DBT, more than 300 schemes of Government of India are actually listed. And you will see both the types of schemes wherein cash subsidy is given to the beneficiaries, wherein kind subsidy is given to beneficiaries, or wherein the subsidy is given to the producers and not to the farmers here. In case of the fertilizer, have we introduced the concept of a DBT? Yes, it is there. But remember this, under this we are not giving subsidy to the farmers directly, we are giving it to the producers, and they are going to supply these particular fertilizers at lower prices, at subsidized prices to the farmers in the market. So for the above, subsidy is provided under the nutrient based subsidy regime. For DAP and MOP, this is applicable. For urea, this is not applicable. Hence, I'll simply say second statement will be wrong. Second statement will be wrong. 1 and 3 are correct. So, right option for this particular question will be option C, 1 and 3. Now, in this particular regard itself, suddenly what UPSC can do is, they can ask you a trend-based question. Trend-based question. Right, this is one example of a trend-based question or a graph here. Have a look at the graph. What kind of questions can be asked? And I'm focusing so much for a very simple reason. Recently, fertilizers have been there in the discussion. Partly because of rising international prices of the fertilizers, partly because of Russia-Ukraine war, because they are the suppliers of the fertilizers in the international market. Right? Because of these particular reasons, fertilizers is there in the discussion. Have a look at the graph here. Basically, in the last 5 to 6 years, what has been the trend? What has been the trend? Has the import of the fertilizers consistently increased? Underline my term, consistently increased. No, you will see that for a couple of years there is a rise, then there is a decline, then there is a pickup like this. Consistently has it increased? No, consistency is not observed. But if you look at this particular graph, we are importing urea, diammonium phosphate and muriate of potash. The index is here. We are importing all the three. But out of all the three, you will just observe one parameter or one inference you can simply make is urea is one of the fertilizer which is imported very high into India. Is it okay? Consistently you can see urea imports, right, have been consistently very high into India. And remember some more very important statements in regards to urea. Urea is the highest imported fertilizer in India. Urea is the highest consumed fertilizer, highest subsidized fertilizer, right? So these are certain very important points. Anyways, have a look at this particular graph. These kind of trend based questions can be asked by UPSC. Done? Next question, very important. Consider the following statements. Amber box and blue box consist of trade distorting subsidies. Now you can say, sir, you have not written anything here, right? How do we understand what you are asking about? I'm pretty sure you have read about amber box, blue box and the concept of the green box under one parameter, under one concept, that is agriculture subsidies. Either you can put this under agriculture subsidies or you can classify this under World Trade Organization, agreements under World Trade Organization. There's a very close linkage between the WTO as well as the subsidies agriculture, because there is one agreement under WTO, that is Agreement on Agriculture, AOA, Agreement on Agriculture. And expect questions on these particular areas, because in the current affairs there has been a lot of discussion related to this. First statement, amber box and blue box consist of trade distorting subsidies, right? In the simple terms, whenever you come across the term trade distorting, what does it mean? Anything that alters the normal course of a trade is called as a trade distorting measure. I will repeat the statement. Anything that alters, which changes the normal course of the trade is called as a trade distorting measure. Sir, what do you mean by that? Imagine you are a manufacturer. Government will provide you a lot of subsidies. As a result of this, your production will be very low, or the cost of production, not production, cost of production will be very low. When the cost of production is very low, what will happen to your export competitiveness? Export competitiveness will increase. Your export competitiveness will increase. And when the export competitiveness increases, your exports will also increase. Makes perfect sense? So that is the idea here. When your exports will increase, the international trade, you will become more and more or a higher participant in the international trade. But that will alter the normal course of the trade. What should be normal course of the trade? If the government doesn't give you subsidy, cost of production is higher, rather than exporting, you might end up importing the goods. But because government is giving subsidy, that will distort the trade, that will basically alter the normal course of the trade. For example, in agriculture sector, a lot of these particular subsidies are classified as trade distorting measures. Trade distorting subsidies under Agreement on Agriculture. Certain very important points here. Under Agreement on Agriculture, remember this. This is one of the very important agreements. India is a signatory of this, has come into force from 1995 itself, after the establishment of WTO. Under Agreement on Agriculture, there are three very important pillars. There are three very important pillars. One is export subsidy. Second, right, is a domestic support. Right, first one is export subsidy. Second one is a domestic support, and that is very important for us. And the third one is tariff barriers or tarification. Tarification basically means elimination of non-tariff barriers, and you can have tariff barriers. So one is export subsidies, reduce export subsidies. Domestic support, there is this classification of subsidies under the domestic support. Amber box, blue box and green box. Amber, blue and green. Now please understand this. There is also another name, that is a red box. There is another name for box of subsidies, a red box of subsidies. This red box is not there in the Agreement on Agriculture. There are no subsidies which are being classified as a red box subsidy under the Agreement on Agriculture. Remember that. But there are three more terminologies: green, blue, amber. What does it mean? Green simply means these are the subsidies. There is no limit. The WTO says any amount of subsidy you can give. There is no limit. You can give any amount of subsidy. Then there is an amber box. Right, amber box, basically look at the color there, amber. Amber simply in a, let's say the traffic light simply means what? You will have to slow down. So in case of amber box subsidies, it consists of trade distorting measures. For example, in case of India, sir, any examples in amber box? In case of amber box, the best example is MSP, minimum support price, that is announced by the government of India. Then there is a fertilizer subsidy, right? The subsidy for purchasing of seeds, etc. Lot of subsidies given by government of India can be classified under amber box. I am talking so much for a very simple reason. There is one more connection here. What is one more connection? Sugar export. Sugar exports. Last year this has grabbed a lot of headlines. India used to provide a lot of subsidies to promote the exports of sugar from India to rest of the world. The reason was very simple. Production of sugar was higher, so we wanted to export more and more sugar to the international market. So government of India announced a lot of the subsidies in case of sugar cane or in terms of export of sugar. And many other trading partners such as Brazil, Guatemala, Venezuela, etc. They went to WTO, filed a complaint against India's agriculture subsidies in case of sugar as such. And as a result of this, we were basically found to be violating WTO norms, and we have been asked to withdraw these particular subsidies. So these particular terms are there in the newspaper. Understand all of them very, very carefully. So amber box subsidies means those subsidies which will violate or which will basically distort the trade. Many examples are there in case of India's agriculture. Best example is MSP. What about blue box subsidies? These will distort the trade. Remember this, these will distort the trade. But the countries use these particular subsidies to control, to limit the production of a particular crop. I'll repeat it. The blue box subsidies will also distort, right? Will distort the trade, but the member countries are allowed to use them to limit the number of production or limit the amount of production of a particular crop. That is the precise reason, even though these are trade distorting measures, in WTO, that is Agreement on Agriculture, there is no limit on blue box. So green box, blue box, no limit. Amber box, limit. Green box doesn't distort the trade or negligible distortion is there. Amber box and blue box distort the trade. Right? Both of them distort the trade. Now, go back to the previous question here. Amber box and blue box consist of trade distorting subsidies. Amber and blue, statement 1 is correct. Under Agreement on Agriculture, there are limits over amber box, green box and blue box subsidies. Statement 2 is wrong. Why? Limit is there only on the amber box subsidy. Absolutely no limit on green box as well as a blue box subsidy. So first statement is correct. Right option for this question will be option A, only one is correct. Next question. Consider the following statements. India is the largest recipient of the remittances. Is the statement true? Absolutely correct. Remember this. As per World Bank report, India has remained the largest recipient of remittances. In 2020, it was correct. In 2021 also, it is correct. Right? World Bank publishes a report regarding this, or basically publishes a document regarding this twice in a year. And as per this particular document, India remains the largest recipient of the remittances, closely followed by China. China is the second largest country. First statement is correct. These remittances form a part of capital account in the balance of payments. These remittances form a part of capital account in the balance of payment. Statement 2 is wrong. Why? When you look at the balance of payments, when you look at the concept of balance of payments, let me simplify that. Balance of payments, basically you will see two accounts in India. I'll repeat my statement here. Balance of payments, for example, if you have studied any book, for that matter in case of UPSC, they will say there are two accounts in the balance of payment. One they will say current account, and the second one they will say capital account. One is the current account, second one is the capital account. But technically speaking, understand this, RBI says there should be three accounts, not two, there should be three accounts. Why? Guidelines regarding balance of payments is published by International Monetary Fund, IMF. IMF basically gives you guidelines regarding how to prepare the BoP, what kind of classification you are supposed to use, etc. And as per IMF guidelines, there are supposed to be three accounts. One is the current, second one is the capital, and the third one is the financial account. And what does RBI do? Because RBI is the responsible or has the responsibility of preparation of BOP. RBI clubs the later two accounts, that is the bottom two accounts, capital and financial account, are clubbed, and we will have only one account. And RBI document clearly states this as capital and financial account. Capital and financial account. So current account, capital account. Where does the remittances fall? Where do remittances fall? Remittances will fall here. Remittances will basically come under the concept of current account. Inward remittances and outward remittances will fall under the current account. So India, is it the major recipient or the largest recipient of inward remittances? Statement 1 is correct. These remittances form a part of capital account in the balance of payment. Statement 2 is wrong. This is wrong. Done. So 1 is correct, 2 is wrong. Right option for this particular question will be option A. Only 1 is correct. Let me go to the next question now. Consider the following statements regarding Fed tapering. The concept of Fed tapering. Very recently this was there in the newspaper, and in the last couple of years this has been there in the discussion. In fact, last year in one of the questions the terminology was used. They did not ask on Fed tapering. They asked a question and one of the points was actually Fed tapering. Now what is the basic idea for tapering here? Please remember these particular terms. Tapering simply means reduction. Tapering simply means reduction. Reduction of what? Reduction in the money supply. Reduction in the money supply. Tapering simply means constricted like this, right? There is a reduction in the money supply. Now why this is called as a Fed tapering? Simply because this is a policy that is used by Federal Reserve of USA. Just like we have RBI as a central banker in India, in USA they have Federal Reserve. And Federal Reserve, just like RBI, has the duty to promote recovery in the economy. The Federal Reserve also does the same thing. So whenever there is, let's say, a slowdown in the economy or recession that is taking place in the US economy, the role of Federal Reserve is to promote recovery. It is to promote growth again in the economy. And during that particular period of time, they generally go for a quantitative easing policy. A quantitative easing policy. For example, even RBI couple of months, or let's say in the last 1 year, has used quantitative easing policy. Any example of a QE policy in case of RBI? GSAP. Yesterday we have discussed, there was a term called as Government Securities Acquisition Program. GSAP is a prime example of QE done by RBI, Reserve Bank of India. Under quantitative easing, what generally happens is money supply increases. Money supply increases. You will have to increase the money supply. Why? The the investment is lower in the economy. Investors are concerned about the situation in the economy. You need to ensure money supply increases. Interest rates will come down. People will take loans. Companies will take loans. Investment will happen. They will create jobs. There will be a demand. Production will happen again. Recovery will take place. That is the whole objective. There is a concept of a vicious and virtuous cycle. During the recession, there is a vicious cycle. You need to promote a virtuous cycle in the economy. So the central banker, that is Federal Reserve, will go for a QE. And how do they conduct a QE here? They'll basically start purchasing lot of G securities. They'll start purchasing lot of G securities. I'm talking about G securities in the context of India. In USA, they will refer to this as treasuries. They will purchase a lot of treasuries and they will reduce federal funds rate. They will reduce federal funds rate, FFR, federal funds rate. What is a federal fund rate? Just like we have interbank lending in case of India, in USA, there is a rate called as a federal funds rate which will determine at which rate of interest one bank will lend to another bank. I'll repeat it. In case of India, we have a system where one bank will lend to another bank. What is that market referred to? Call money market. The market where one bank lends to another bank, call money market. And when one bank will lend to another bank, will the lender charge a rate of interest? Of course, yes. The same way, in USA, that rate of interest is a federal funds rate. But please understand this federal funds rate is a much bigger concept. It is not just call money market, it is much bigger concept. Rate of interest charged on loans which are given by banks, they will decide based on federal funds rate. Rate of interest on loans in the form of, let's say, credit card, it is decided based on federal funds rate. It is a much bigger concept as such. So when the Federal Reserve will reduce the FFR, the interest rate in the market will come down. The loans which are issued are expected to increase. And moreover, another argument here is, if the rate of interest comes down, if I have a loan, existing loan, I am paying lower rate of interest. Does it make sense to you? Imagine out of 100 rupees, that is my income. Earlier I was paying 10 rupees in the form of interest. So how much money I will have? 90 rupees. Now out of 100 rupees, imagine the rate of interest reduces and goes down to 8 rupees. How much money will be left out with me now? 92. Compared to earlier situation, I will have more money to spend now. So that is expected to prompt recovery, increased demand, higher production in the economy. Right? So with this objective, quantitative easing policy is followed by Federal Reserve. But please understand, after certain recovery takes place, Federal Reserve says no, this amount of money that is there in the market is dangerous because it will cause inflation. That is exactly what is happening in India. That is exactly what is happening in USA. But again, having said so, please understand, is this the only reason why inflation is there? That would be completely wrong. That would be completely wrong, because please understand, inflation can happen because of supply side as well as the demand side. The interest rates will basically focus on the demand side. What about the supply side? Because of the friction or the war between Russia and Ukraine, crude oil prices have skyrocketed. That is basically a supply side factor, right? So understand this. So after Q is done, the Federal Reserve will go for opposite policy, which is called as a Fed tapering. What is done under Fed tapering? Under Fed tapering, the amount of G securities they are purchasing, the amount they will reduce. They will start increasing the federal funds rate. They will increase the FFR. They will reduce the amount of treasuries they are purchasing under this particular concept of the quantitative easing. Money supply automatically comes down. Inflation will be controlled. And the objectives of Federal Reserve will be met. Now have a look at this. It is an expansionary policy followed by Federal Reserve. Is it an expansionary or contractionary policy? Sir, you told everything, but you did not tell about the term expansionary. Expansionary simply means increase money supply. Right? Through the Fed tapering, are they increasing the money supply? No, they are reducing money supply. Second, as a result of this, Indian rupee may experience a depreciation. Correct. What generally happens is, with rising interest rates in USA, when the Fed tapering is done, interest rates will rise. The foreign investors from India will take money out of India, start moving towards USA, invest in USA in simple terms. But in the process, what they will do is, they will take out the money, they will sell their shares or let's say bonds, they will go to the forex market, sell rupees, supply of rupee increases, rupee will depreciate. Rupee will depreciate. So second statement is true. As a result of this, Indian rupee may experience a depreciation. So right option for this question will be option B, only 2 is correct. Let me go to the next question. Consider the following statements. Developing countries are provided with a differential treatment under GATT and GATS. Developing countries are provided with a differential treatment under GATT and GATS. General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, General Agreement in Trade in Services. Do developing countries get a special treatment under GATT as well as GATS? Statement 1 is correct. What do you mean by differential treatment? Whenever certain guidelines are supposed to be implemented by the member countries of WTO, right? Whenever they are supposed to be implemented, generally what the WTO does is, special treatment will be given, special facilities or let's say flexibilities are provided for developing countries. Is okay, special flexibilities are provided to developing countries which are not extended to developed countries. So do we have these kind of special facilities or let's say flexibilities for developing countries under GATT and GATS? Statement 1 is correct. Now second very important point within this, the concept of developing countries. Remember this, under WTO we divide the countries into developed and developing based on self-declaration. Whether you say LDC, developing, developed, etc., it is based on self-declaration. Remember this. There is no parameter, right? There is no parameter used to divide the countries. No. In World Bank, there is a parameter based on how much income is there per capita. They will divide the countries into developing, developed, LDC, etc. under World Bank. Even under IMF, there is a parameter which is considered, or list of parameters which are considered to divide the countries into developed, developing, LDC, etc. Whereas in case of WTO, there is no formula. Member countries themselves declare whether they are developed or developing. This was there in the newspaper. Please be very, very careful. Why? Two reasons. The earlier president of USA was opposed to India and China being declared as developing countries. The president of USA, that is the former president of USA, Mr. Donald Trump, right? He basically argued that India should not be recognized as a developing country. China should not be recognized as a developing country. And look at the irony. Couple of months ago, India itself opposed the idea of China itself declaring as a developing country. India said we oppose the idea that China is a developing country. What about India? India is a developing country even today. Right? Even today it is classified as a developing country under WTO. So first statement, developing countries are provided with a differential treatment under GATT and GATS. Statement 1 is correct. GSP is an example of a preferential treatment provided for developing countries. Yes, second statement is also correct. Now what is this GSP? Generalized system of preferences. Generalized system of preferences. GSP stands for generalized system of preferences. Right? The system is very simple here. Imagine there is a developed country. There is a developed country. It is conducting trade with many other countries like this. And imagine it is conducting trade with a developing country. And rather than calling developed, developing multiple times, I'll simply write A and B. A is conducting trade with B. Whenever the exports will move from B to A will provide a preferential treatment to these particular imports. Either they will apply a reduced tariff, or they will basically cut the tariff, or basically reduce it to zero. Is it okay? Eliminate or reduce the tariff on these particular imports which are coming from developing country. You will have to remember this. A is developed, B is developing. A will provide this kind of a preferential or special treatment to the exports coming from developing country. Now you'll ask me, sir, what if this is conducting trade with another country which is developed? Which is developed? Can they provide the same treatment under GSP? Under GSP? No. Under generalized system of preferences, a developed country either will reduce or eliminate the tariffs on the imports which are coming from a developing country. Now this is left to the, the discretion of the developed country to which country they want to extend this particular facility. It is not compulsory on them. For example, earlier, underline my statement, earlier USA used to provide GSP benefits to India. Earlier USA used to provide GSP benefits to India. Today it is not providing. Couple of years ago, India was removed out of the GSP list of USA. Having said so, does India enjoy GSP benefits from other countries? Yes. There are many other countries which provide GSP benefits to India. So this system is called as a GSP. GSP is an example for preferential treatment provided for developing countries. Statement 2 is correct. Right option to this particular question will be both 1 and 2. Both 1 and 2. Next question. Consider the following statements regarding World Trade Organization. WTO, by the way, is a World Trade Organization. The decisions or orders of the appellate body are final and binding on the member countries. Very important. Current affairs, connected to current affairs. Two very important reasons. Have a look at this. Earlier, under foreign trade policy, FTP, Government of India had introduced a scheme by the name of MEIS, Merchandise Exports from India Scheme. Many other countries under WTO, member countries of WTO, have filed complaint against this particular scheme apart from many other schemes. The case went to appellate body and appellate body found that, the case went to dispute settlement body and the dispute settlement body has found that yes, India is actually violating WTO norms. What kind of norms? Please remember these particular terminologies very carefully. In case of export subsidies, where are the export subsidies provided by the government? MEIS, government provided export subsidies. EPCG, export promotion of capital goods, government provided subsidies. Or for that matter, right, sugar cane, or not sugar cane, sugar. Sugar cane subsidies are provided, but sugar export subsidies are provided. In case of both of them, the agreement that was referred to under WTO was the SCM, subsidies and countervailing measures. Remember this. Do not assume only one agreement under WTO and same agreement you will throw left, right and center in paper. Absolutely no. There are multiple agreements. For example, in case of rice and wheat, they will be referring to agreement on agriculture. In the context of MEIS and sugar exports, they would be referring to SCM, subsidies and countervailing measures. And the argument was very simple. The member countries stated that India's per capita national income is more than $1,000. India's per capita national income is more than $1,000, and under SCM, any country which has more than $1,000 per capita national income should not be providing export subsidies. And that was the reason why Government of India was found to be violating the guidelines, or let's say the provisions of SCM under MEIS and sugar, right, subsidies. The MEIS scheme has been withdrawn by Government of India. Instead of MEIS, today we have RODTP. There's a question on that. We'll discuss it later. What about sugar subsidies? Even today, this particular sugar subsidies are present. India has stated we will appeal the order of the DSP at appellate body. I'll come to that. Just give me a second. Come to this side. In the context of rice and wheat, we generally discuss agreement on agriculture. That is basically amber box subsidies. Amber box subsidies. And just to make it much more clear, either you say clear or complicated, even in case of sugar discussion, the agreement on agriculture was one of the points. Why? Under AOA, there is something called as a de minimis clause. De minimis clause or de minimis level. And the de minimis level basically says that for a developed country, the amount of amber box subsidies or aggregate measure of support should not be more than 5% of value of production. And for a developing country, it should not be more than 10% of value of production. Again, this is a basic principle. I'm not getting into the calculation, because in case of calculation, again, you will have to go back in time, take the prices of 86, 88, etc. But please be very, very careful with respect to all of these. The allegation of the member countries of WTO in case of sugar was that India, by providing export subsidies, is violating the provisions of subsidies and countervailing measures. And in case of production of sugar, you require sugar cane. Government of India provides a lot of subsidies even for sugar cane. There India was violating agreement on agriculture. There India was violating the de minimis level of agreement on agriculture. These are referred in the newspaper. Please be very, very careful. Now, in addition to this, there is one more term, peace clause. Another very important terminology, current affairs, lot of discussions happening regarding this. There is a terminology called as peace clause. What is this peace clause? The Government of India is worried that because they procure a lot of these particular food grains for public distribution purposes and pay MSP because they are procuring, they end up violating the agreement on agriculture provision. That is, the de minimis level of 10%, India may end up violating. And it has violated. Many of the times it has violated. For example, last 3 years, right, India has actually violated the 10% de minimis level as such. In that case, what will happen? Very simple. Other members of WTO will file a complaint against WTO in dispute settlement body. There is a body under WTO called as a dispute settlement body. Please be very, very careful. The basic idea is under WTO, right? Remember this, the highest decision making body is Ministerial Conference. Ministerial Conference is the highest decision making body. Under Ministerial Conference, because the Ministerial Conference doesn't meet on everyday basis or regular basis, generally they meet once in 2 years like this. But because the WTO has to function on day-to-day basis, apart from the Ministerial Council or Ministerial Conference, there is a General Council. There is a General Council, GC. So highest decision making body is a Ministerial Conference. Highest level decision making body is a General Council. The General Council, which consists of the member countries of WTO, will act as a dispute settlement body and will also act as a trade policy review body. Will act as a dispute settlement body and will also act as a trade policy review body. Now this is where I am focused. Dispute settlement body, member countries will go to DSB, file a complaint. They will file a complaint saying that, see, India is violating this particular agreement. And what does the DSB do? First they will call both the member countries or whichever parties are there, they will call them and say try to resolve the issue amongst yourself. Both of you are grown, bade bacche ho, try to resolve the issues. Now the member countries where there is a dispute, right, they will try to resolve it through mediation, consultation, etc. If that doesn't work out, again they will go back to DSP and say we have a problem. Right? We have a problem, this issue is not getting resolved. So now what the DSP does? They will appoint a panel. They will appoint a panel. Generally it will consist of 3 members. The panel will investigate, submit a report to DSP. Now whatever the panel findings are there, for example, the panel has found that India is violating agreement on agriculture norms as well as it is violating even the SCM norms, subsidies and countervailing measures agreement, by providing subsidies for sugar. Now what is the recourse? Will India simply accept it and implement? Absolutely no. The next point is that we will simply take this particular report or findings of the panel to appellate body. To appellate body, and that is where the question is there now. To appellate body. Now in the appellate body, this is also there in the current affairs. Please be very, very careful. Appellate body should consist of 7 members. The sanctioned strength, how many members should be there in the appellate body? 7 members. And their tenures, right, or their term is generally for 4 years. And they are appointed in a stacking manner in such a way that there will be a certain number of members at any point of time. At one point of time, all the 7 members will not be finishing their term as such. But please remember this, whenever you need to appoint members to the appellate body, you need the consent. You need consensus amongst the WTO members. And the importance of appellate body is, whenever the appeals are done in the appellate body, that is AB, you need a quorum of 3 members. You need a quorum of 3 members. Out of 7 people, 3 members will sit and take up this particular objection or let's say appeals of the member country. And then the appellate body will issue the objections or let's say orders. They will give their own findings. Is it binding on the member countries? Absolutely no. It is not binding. Why? Ultimately, the ball will fall or land in the court of a dispute settlement body. It will simply fall into the dispute settlement body's hands. Now remember this, the dispute settlement body can reject the findings of the appellate body and the panel. They can reject it. But it is a very, very high standard or a high bar to actually clear. Why? If they want to reject this particular findings of the panel or the appellate body, they need a consensus. I repeat, with only consensus, they can reject the findings. If there is no consensus to reject it, automatically the report would be accepted. Remember this, appellate body doesn't have the power to enforce the orders. No. Even if a member country doesn't follow the order, can appellate body penalize them? Absolutely no. Everything is done here, dispute settlement body. Okay, now, the decisions or orders of the appellate body are final and binding on the member countries. No, this is not final or binding. Second, the Ministerial Conference is the highest decision making body under WTO. Statement 2 is correct. Right option will be option B here. Okay, option B is the right one. Now before I go to the next question, there was a term here, peace clause. I did not complete it, let me complete it. The concern for a member country such as WTO was that by providing food subsidies or by procuring the food grains to provide for poor people, I may end up violating the 10% de minimis level. So the member countries will go to WTO, file a complaint, and WTO will order me to withdraw these subsidies. That is very, very difficult for me. So what has been done? There is a provision called as a peace clause. And remember this, the peace clause is available only for developing countries. It is available only for developing countries. It is not available for developed countries. But what is the meaning of the peace clause? Under the peace clause, if a developing country crosses the threshold, crosses the de minimis level, the developed country cannot file a complaint against it. I repeat, under the peace clause, if a developing country crosses the de minimis level, a developed country cannot file a complaint against this under WTO. But having said so, there are certain conditions also. It is not a free lunch. There are conditions. What are the conditions? WTO says there is an committee on agriculture under WTO. So whenever you provide these subsidies, you will have to submit data to us. You will have to submit the report to us as to how much money you are spending on which subsidy. Because many of you will have this doubt. Sir, Government of India can silently give subsidies, no? How will USA come to know? Right, we'll go in the night, knock on the door, right, simply slip this particular subsidy into the right house of the farmer and come back. How will the USA come to know? Because understand this, under WTO, there is a tool called as transparency. There's a principle of transparency. For example, when you study about GATS, when you study about TRIPS, etc., there is a term called as a transparency. What do you mean by that? Whenever any policy is undertaken by the government in regards to, let's say, services sector, they will have to submit the documents to WTO. If they take any policy regarding subsidies, they will have to submit the policy or the documents to WTO, which is available to all the other member countries to have a look. Done? Right, so this is the basic idea of a peace clause, right? This is available for developing countries. India has actually used it in the last 2 years. This will be available only in case you are procuring the food grains for distribution purposes, not for exporting purposes. Distribution, public distribution system, for those purposes or food security purposes, peace clause can be utilized. Done. This is a discussion related to question. So option B is the right one for this question. Let me go to the next question. Consider the following statements regarding RODTP and MEIS scheme, remission of duties and taxes on export products, and the MEIS merchandise exports from India scheme. I have already mentioned India introduced MEIS as a part of foreign trade policy. Sir, what about RODTP then? This also has been introduced as a part of foreign trade policy. Earlier, the foreign trade policy was announced for 2015 to 2020. Remember this. 2015 to 2020. This is the time period. 5 years. But because of the slowdown, pandemic, recession, Government of India has extended the period of FTP. Even today, which FTP is applicable? Same FTP is applicable. Government was expected to announce a new FTP from 1st of April 2022. This has not happened. Even today, the provisions of which FTP are applicable? This is the FTP. Done? Now, under this, two schemes are very much in the newspaper. One is the concept of MEIS, which has been withdrawn. SEIS has been suspended. The government has introduced a new scheme by the name of RODTP, withdrawn MEIS from 1st of January 2021. Now, understand the difference between both of them. Under RODTP, Government of India says that you have paid certain taxes at a state level, at central level, at local level. I will repeat it. When you manufacture and you want to export the product, you have paid certain amount of taxes at central, state as well as a local level, which have not been refunded to you, which have not been given back to you. Why will the government give back the taxes? Simple. These are for production, and when you produce it, whatever taxes you pay on the inputs have to be given back to you. Otherwise, that will lead to cascading effect. Go back to GST. If the government doesn't give you the taxes that you have paid on the input, imagine you are manufacturing this marker. I'm pretty sure all of you can say this. To manufacture the marker, you will purchase plastic, you will pay GST, and you will manufacture the marker, you are about to sell it in the market. If you have paid 10 rupees tax on the inputs, and if you don't get it back, what will you do? When you will sell the marker to me, you will transfer that 10 rupees to me. You will collect the 10 rupee tax from me. That is basically the concept of cascading effect. Because apart from you collecting 10 rupee, again the government will impose a tax. Tax on a tax is nothing but a cascading effect. So we have introduced GST. But having said so, understand this. Are all the taxes covered under GST today? Whatever you purchase in the market, does everything come under GST? Think very, very carefully. Is anything that you have purchased or everything that you have purchased, is GST applicable on everything? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. Remember the statement. Most of them, yes, they are under GST. But when you go and when you purchase petrol, when you consume petrol, now when I say consume, do not take it literally. In economics, consumption doesn't mean literally you are going to eat. I'll say you consume petrol, you consume ATF, you will consume, let's say, car. Doesn't literally mean you will go out, right, open the hood of the car and start eating the car. No. When you start using, we'll simply use the term consumption in economics. So you consume petrol, you consume, right, ATF, you consume diesel. Is GST applicable on that? No. You consume electricity. Is GST applicable on that? No. Sunday evening. Right, this is, I know, today is Sunday evening. Many of you are sitting with a glass of a liquid in your hand. Right, on that, is GST applicable? No. I have to understand this. State governments impose a tax on that. Even today, that is not under the ambit of GST. So now the argument is, you are a manufacturer, you have purchased, let's say, electricity, you have purchased petrol and diesel, taxes are imposed. But these taxes will go to center as well as state. It is not covered under GST. That will not be refunded to you. So when you manufacture the marker and you are about to export it, you will add the tax and export it. It is as good as saying you are exporting taxes. I will repeat my statement. It is as good as saying you are exporting taxes. Right? And if you want to promote exports, should the market prices be lower or higher? You tell me. You want to promote exports. You are the Prime Minister. So should you increase the market prices of the product or should you decrease the market prices? Exports will become competitive when you decrease. So what government said was, whatever taxes you have paid at the state, central as well as the local level, I will remit it back to you. I will give it back to you. Is it okay? I will simply give it back to you under the scheme called as RODTEP. Whereas the object of MEIS was, the subsidies were directly linked to exports. Subsidies were directly linked to exports. And because we are signatory of SCM, we are not supposed to provide those subsidies. Hence, we were forced to withdraw MEIS and we have introduced RODTEP. Let's start. The duty credit scrips issued under both can be used for payment of customs duty? Yes. Sir, what is this duty credit scrip? I said whatever taxes you have paid here will be given back to you. Under MEIS also certain incentives were given to you. But remember that incentive was not given in the form of cash. It was never given in the form of cash. In fact, they issued scrips. Now what is a scrip? Imagine it to be a voucher. Imagine it is a voucher. They will give you 100 rupee voucher. What purpose can you use this voucher for? Government says, Thamba, wait, don't worry. You are importing something. Right, please, you want to pay taxes, use the voucher. Use the voucher to pay import duties, that is customs duty. First statement is correct. But here itself, UPSC, just to confuse you, right, will also confuse you like this. Were the form of the duty credit scrip one and the same? Duty credit scrip, are the form one and the same? Absolutely no. Sir, what do you mean by form? Earlier, physical copies of the scripts were issued. I'll repeat, under MEIS, the physical copies of the script, hard copy was actually given to you. Today, no. Under DGFT, there will be an account opened your name and they will simply transfer that the script value into your account. and you can use it to pay for the import duties whenever you import certain goods. Now some of you will start thinking, sir, you are saying I can use it to pay for imports. What if I don't import anything? What if I don't import anything? Then what will happen? Simple. You can sell the script to me. I am importing something. You can sell the script to me. Remember that. And sir, is there any validity of the script? Remember, earlier the script validity was 18 months. Earlier the validity of the script was 18 months. Now this has increased to 24 months. Earlier the validity of the script was 18 months and now this has been increased to 24 months. So first statement is correct. Both cover the same number of goods. A big no, right? A big no. Why? Earlier in case of MEIS, right, we had around 7,300 plus goods. Whereas in case of RODTP, we have more than 8,500. In fact, it is 8,555 goods. And remember one more very important point here. There was one committee which was set up by Government of India in the context of RODTP, GK Pillai Committee. GK Pillai Committee. And it is this particular committee which has given recommendation for the rates under RODTP. Done? So first statement is correct. Right one is option A. Now before I go forward, I told you under FTP 2 points are there in the current affairs. One is the RODTP replacing MEIS, which I have discussed. Second one is your homework, that is interest equalization scheme. Interest equalization scheme, IES. Why this was there in the newspaper? Very simple. RBI has extended the tenure of interest equalization scheme. I'll repeat the statement here. The interest equalization scheme was supposed to end in 2020. RBI has extended and that announcement has been done in the last 1 year itself. So very, very important. Very, very important. Done? This is the discussion related to this question. Let me go to the next one. Consider the following statements. The supplies to SEZ are zero rated. First and foremost, what is SEZ? Special Economic Zone. Sir, I studied Special Economic Zone in my textbook, whichever reference book. Why are you discussing SEZ, which is a static part? There is a reason for my discussion. Very recently in the budget, Government of India stated that we want to revamp SEZ policy. I'll repeat. The government has stated that they want to revamp the Special Economic Zone policy. That is the reason this becomes very, very important now. First and foremost, SEZ have a statutory backing, that is SEZ Act of 2005. SEZ Act of 2005. We have passed an act and given a statutory status or backing to special economic zones. The supplies to SEZ are zero rated. What do you mean by the term zero rated here? It simply means that there is no GST applicable on the goods which are supplied to the special economic zones. Statement 1 is correct. Statement 1 is correct. Because please understand, the basic idea of SEZ is that these are enclaves. These are enclaves. What do you mean by enclave? Enclave simply means whichever is the part of a particular country. Which is part of a particular country, it is called as an enclave. Now have a look at this. Imagine this is India. Imagine. I know it doesn't look like India. Please do not file a sedition case against me. Imagine this is India. Part of India, I will simply notify this as a special economic zone. Is it okay? Government of India, right? The shading is not clear. Okay. Let me use another color here so that it is clearly visible to you. Okay, same color. Okay. Okay, great. Right, this is the part. Don't worry. Right, so this particular part, the Government of India will simply notify this as a special economic zone. They'll simply notify this particular region as a special economic zone. And the laws or the rules which are applicable to special economic zone are different from rest of the country. For example, if a good is supplied to a manufacturer here, GST is applicable. But if the same good is supplied for manufacturing within SEZ, rates are not applicable. GST rates are not applicable. That is the reason there is one more statement here. Anything that is supplied to the SEZ, this will be considered as exports. Anything that is supplied to SEZ will be treated as exports. On exports, we do not impose any taxes. Same way, anything that you supply to SEC, we do not impose taxes. Why? Reason is predominantly the production done in SEC is for export purposes. Predominantly the production that is done within SEC is for export purposes. Now some of you will basically think, sir, okay, agreed, so far so good. I've produced a good here, you say I should export, but what if there is a pandemic, I'm unable to export it? What should I do? Can I sell it within the DTA, domestic tariff area? This is called as a domestic tariff area. Can I sell it within the DTA? Government says, right, very well, sell it. But one more condition. When you sell it within the domestic tariff area like this, I will treat this as an import. I will treat this particular product when you're selling within India as an import, and whatever customs is applicable on import, I will impose it. That is a basic idea of an SEC. First statement, the supplies to SEC are zero rated. Statement 1 is correct. And here itself I just want to add one more point here. RODTEP, remember this, RODTEP, one of the objectives of RODTEP is to make exports zero rated. Remember this, one of the objectives of RODTEP is to make exports zero rated. What do you mean by this? Whenever you manufacture this and export, you should not be exporting taxes. If you say 100 rupees the selling price in the international market, out of 100 rupees there should be no component of tax, because understand this, you have paid GST on the inputs, you will get input tax credit. You have paid other taxes which are not covered under GST, government says I will remit it back. So why should you export a tax now? RODTEP objective is also to zero rate the exports. Second statement, the scheme of RODTEP also has been introduced for zero rating of our exports. Yes, statement 2 is correct. Both of them are correct. Right option for this particular question will be option C, both 1 and 2. Next question. Consider the following statements. FTA covers only good. First and foremost, what is FTA? Free Trade Agreement. FTA basically stands for Free Trade Agreement. There is this concept of economic integration. Economic integration. And under economic integration, there are various stages. Please mug up the sequence. UPSC can ask you the sequence. Reason is, very recently, lot of discussion has been happening in the context of economic integration. For example, India and UAE, they are discussing a free trade agreement. India and Australia very recently have signed a free trade agreement. India and UAE have signed the free trade agreement. India and UK are negotiating a free trade agreement. India and USA, until very recently, they were also negotiating an FTA. India and Japan, right now there will be a discussion on that particular FTA, right? So there is a lot of discussion happening around the concept of economic integration. Remember the sequence. Generally, you start with PTA, Preferential Trade Agreement. After PTA, you sign FTA. Again, there is no guarantee that you should start with only PTA. Many of the times, countries directly go to FTA. After FTA, there is a concept of Customs Union. Customs Union. And after Customs Union, there is a Common Market. Then after Common Market, there is this concept of Economic Union. Economic Union. Now, India has signed multiple PTAs, multiple FTAs, etc. Right? India has signed multiple PTAs and multiple FTAs. Right? And here itself, there are two more terms. One is a Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. CEPA, SECA. Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. And there is one more term here, Early Harvest Trade Deal. Early Harvest Trade Deal. All these terminologies are very, very important for UPSC Prelims. Basically, India has signed multiple FTAs. When you sign FTAs, you can cover either goods, you can cover services. Remember this. Either you can cover goods or you can cover services. There is no hard and fast rule like this. You can cover goods also, you can cover services also. Sir, can we cover combination? Of course, yes. It all depends on the member countries which are negotiating the trade deal as such. So, FTA can cover both goods as well as services. Then what is the CEPA and the CECA, CEPA and SECA? the scope of a SEPA and SECA will be much more higher compared to FTA, because generally in case of FTA, what the member countries or the grouping countries do is, they will either reduce or eliminate the tariff on goods and services. I repeat, either they will reduce or eliminate the tariffs on goods and services. But when you talk about a SEPA or SECA, they will reduce or eliminate the tariffs, plus, right, understand this, plus they would also focus on coverage of intellectual property rights. They would also focus on, let's say, investment in these particular countries as such. So the scope of coverage under SEPA and SECA will be much higher. I'll repeat my statement here. Scope of coverage, it covers majorly the trade in goods and services. But here, apart from trading in goods and services, they will also focus on investment. They'll focus on intellectual property rights, etc. So that is the basic concept of SEPA, SECA, FTA, etc. So this is the economic integration. Please read what will happen at economic union, common market, customs union, FTA, PTA, and there is one more term, early harvest trade deal. India and Australia initially said we will sign early harvest trade deal. I'll repeat my statement here. India and Australia earlier stated that, right, we will sign an early harvest trade deal, right? What is this early harvest trade deal? Let me give a very simple example first. Imagine you'll start studying one subject. Okay, you'll start studying one subject. Again, don't start now. You should be repeating now. We'll start studying a subject. You feel that if you go by sequence, if you go by chapter 1, chapter 2, etc. like this, certain chapters which are there in the beginning are very difficult for you to comprehend. Very difficult for you. So what you will do? You will skip these particular chapters. You will finish all the easier chapters. Come to difficult chapters. Agreed? Most of you have done this. In the agreement also, same thing is done. Imagine they want to negotiate an agreement for 100 goods. Negotiating the 100 goods would take lot of time. There will be certain goods which will take lot of discussion amongst the member countries. So what they do is, out of 100 goods, imagine 10 goods, they can easily come to an agreement. Right? Member countries can easily come to an agreement. So rather than waiting for the negotiation to happen for all the 100, they will come to an agreement only on these particular 10 goods and implement it. Implement the agreement. That is called as early harvest trade deal. It is a precursor to free trade agreement. It is a precursor to an FTA. FTA takes time. It is not done overnight. Many of the times FTAs will take multiple months or multiple years. So it will take time. But should we wait for more time to implement? No. Some of the goods you can easily come to an agreement. So let's implement the agreement on this. That is early harvest trade deal. Come back to the question now. Come back to the question. FTA covers only goods? No, it may cover goods, it may cover services. Under customs union, member countries will have the same tariffs for non-members. Statement 2 is correct. But what do you mean by customs union here? Look at this customs union. I'll take a current affairs example so that you understand. Very recently, India and many other countries, for example, Australia, we have signed a form of an FTA, right? Or Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement itself. After that, we will generally enter into customs union. What happens in a customs union? If India and Australia form a customs union, look at the term here, customs. Customs means taxes on imports and exports. So India and Australia form a customs union. It simply means anybody else, any other country which is out of this grouping, whenever they conduct the trade with any of the two members, same tariffs would be applicable. Same tariffs would be applicable to this particular trade. So second statement, under customs union, member countries will have the same tariffs for non-members. Statement 2 is correct. Right option for question will be option B, only 2 here. Let me go to the next question. The term rules of origin, very often appearing in the news, refers to dash. Fill in the blank. Rules of origin refers to what? I will tell you the current affairs context. India and UAE have signed an agreement, and under that agreement there is a provision of rules of origin. India and other members of RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, we were negotiating. India ultimately said, I will not become a part of RCEP. one of the contention was that India wanted a very tough rules of origin. Now what is this idea for rules of origin? Have a look at this. Imagine A is conducting trade with B and they sign an agreement. Any exports from B to A now will attract a 0% tariff. And any exports from A to B now will attract, let's say, 0% tariff. Now there is one more country C which is exporting the good to country A, let's say this marker. Now if this marker is manufactured in country B, exported to A, what is the tariff? 0%. Same marker manufactured in country C, exported to country A, government of country A, imagine, is imposing 15% tariff. 15%. Now what the country C will do? First they will export this marker to country B. From country B they will export it to country A. Right? Now some of you might be thinking, sir, why they are doing this kind of a circus? They are doing it for a very simple reason. What if country C and country B both have the agreement, and under that agreement, if this marker is exported like this, it will attract 0%. Just a hypothetical example here. It will attract 0%. So now they will export it to country B. From country B at 0%, they will export it to country A. So don't you think country C is benefiting? It is benefiting from the agreement that has been signed between country A and B. Now this kind of a practice is followed by many countries. Many countries, best example, China. Right? China is generally alleged that they follow this kind of a practice itself. Now in this situation, what the government of A can do? What can country A do? Whenever this marker will come from country B, they will ask for a certificate. They will simply say, show me the proof that this marker has been manufactured in country B. Is it okay? Show me the proof that at least, let's say, 30% or 40% value addition in the marker has happened in the country B, meaning it has been manufactured in country B. Show me the proof. If you can't show me the proof, I will simply assume that this product has been routed like this. Whatever is the tariff applicable on this particular product, I will not give you the benefit. I will simply apply the same tariff like this. Right? That benefit will not be given to you. Now you are experiencing a benefit, enjoying a benefit, 0%. That benefit I will not give it to you. I will simply impose 15% tariff and collect on this particular product. Right? The guidelines which help the importing country like this, it is called as rules of origin. Look at the statement here. This is basically referring to the criteria that is needed to determine origin of the product. Right? These are nothing but the guidelines which are used by importing countries to find out what is the origin of this particular product. Has it been originated in this country B, or has the product originated in country C? And using those particular guidelines, government of country A will impose, when the marker will come like this, should I impose a 0% tariff or 15% tariff? Very much important in the current affairs. Please have a look at it. So for this particular question, the right option will be option C. Let me go to the next question. Arrange the following in increasing level of integration. In the increasing level of integration. So we have a free trade agreement, common market, economic union and customs union. The final one will be economic union. The last one will be economic union. So 3 is the last one. 3 is the last one. So option D will be the right one. Right? So option D is the only one option where 3 is the last one. But anyways, have a look at this. 1, 4, 2, 3. 1 is a free trade agreement, correct. 4 is a customs union, correct. After FTA there is a customs union. Then there is a common market, yes. Then there is an economic union. So 1, 4, 2 and 3. So right option for this question is option D. Done. Let me go to the next question. Which of the following may be used to reduce current account deficit? Which of the following may be used to reduce current account deficit? CAD, current account deficit. Now what parameters, or let's say what actions can be taken by government of India amongst these to reduce CAD? First one, banning of the wheat exports. This has happened very recently. Banning of wheat exports. Now if the government bans wheat exports, will it reduce the current account deficit? Will it help in controlling current account deficit? No. It will not help in reducing the current account deficit. Why? If you want to reduce current account deficit, please understand this very carefully. What is the CAD? Expenditure under CAD is higher compared to the revenue. Simple. Right? What is CAD? Current account deficit. Expenditure under the current account is higher compared to the revenue. Now in this situation, how can you control current account deficit? Either you can control your expenditure, right, reduce the expenditure, or you can increase the revenue collection. Again, don't say, sir, revenue, does it mean government revenues? No, sir, I'm not talking about government revenues. I'm talking about interaction between India with the rest of the world. Because BoP essentially covers what? Any type of a transaction that takes place between India and rest of the world will be recorded in the balance of payment. So have a look at this. How can you control or reduce the current account deficit? Either reduce the expenditure or increase the revenue, or do both of them simultaneously. CAD automatically will come down. So first point, a banning of wheat exports. If you ban wheat exports, exports from India will come down. And when the exports will go down, what will happen to your inflow of dollars? Inflow of dollars will come down. So current account deficit will come down or increase. Current account deficit will increase. First one is wrong. Now you can use elimination method here, right? You try it out. Imposing tariffs on non-tariff barriers on non-essential imports. Imposing tariff and non-tariff barriers on non-essential imports. What is a tariff barrier? Import duties. Any type of a taxes on imports is a tariff barrier. Non-tariff barrier, any other policy that prohibits inflow of imports apart from taxation is a non-tariff barrier. For example, you must have heard of monetary restrictions. You must have heard of quota system, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, public procurement policies. All of these basically prohibit or reduce the amount of imports into a particular country. Right, so these are called as non-tariff barrier. So if you impose non-tariff barriers on non-essential imports, right, they will become very costly. Imports will come down, so expenditure will come down, current account deficit will come down. Second one is correct. Third one, liberalizing FDI, foreign direct investment. Some of you might be thinking, yes, if you liberalize FDI, you will attract more and more foreign investments into India. But please be very careful here. FDI is not a part of current account. FDI is a part of capital account. Is it okay? FDI is not part of a current account. It is a part of capital account. So no, third one is wrong. Fourth one, allowing higher limits under ECB, external commercial borrowings. When you give more limits under ECB, which is currently now annually at $750 million, companies will borrow more from the external market. Dollars will flow into India. That will reduce the current account deficit. No, it will not reduce current account deficit. Why? ECB is a part of capital account. ECB is a part of capital account, not part of the current account. So 2 is correct. Right option will be option A, only 2. Right option is option A, only 2 is the correct one in this particular context. Done. Let me go to the next question now. Consider the following statements regarding districts as export hub scheme. Districts as export hub scheme. Right, understand this. Either they can use directly this name, or else they will say developing districts as export hub scheme. Under this, Government of India says that every district has one or the other product which has export potential. I will repeat the statement here. Government says every district in India, 700 plus, will have one or the other product which has got export potential. So we will identify this particular product, promote the production of it, and export of this particular product. For example, there is a concept of a GI tagged products, geographical indication tagged products. So these have lot of export potential. So government says, I will set up committees. I will set up committees at a district level as well as a state level. District Export Promotion Committee, State Export Promotion Committee. The role of these particular committees is that they will identify which products have got export potential, and whatever issues are there regarding this particular production, they will try to resolve these particular issues so that the production of these goods will increase, exports will also increase. They want to develop these districts as export hubs. I repeat, they want to develop these particular districts as export hubs, right? So that is the basic objective of district as export hub scheme. Let's start. It is being implemented by DGFT, Director General of Foreign Trade. Statement 1 is correct. Now some of you will say, sir, I read somewhere it is Ministry of Commerce. The DGFT comes under Ministry of Commerce. Second, under this, SCPC and DEPC are to be set up. Statement 2 is also correct. Right option for this question will be option C, both 1 and 2. Both 1 and 2 are correct here. Let me go to the next question. Consider the following statements regarding NSWS, National Single Window System. National Single Window Clearance System, right? NSWS. Now this particular NSWS, understand this, has been proposed as a single window clearance system. Now first and foremost, what do you mean by a single window clearance system? Imagine you want to set up a manufacturing facility. Okay, you want to set up a manufacturing facility. Now in order to set up this particular manufacturing facility, you are supposed to take multiple licenses or approvals. Agreed? You will have to take multiple licenses or approvals, which means you will have to keep on running from one district, the authority to another authority, one ministry to another ministry, one department to another department. Imagine I am one of those, right? I want to set up this manufacturing facility, and you are the cabinet secretary, or not cabinet secretary, let's say a secretary in a particular department. I will come to you, I will apply for an approval. You look at me and say, sir, I used to teach economics, right? You troubled me a lot. Now the ball is in my court, I will trouble you, right? You will give a dialogue, don't trouble, etc. like this. So now the argument is, again, don't write the story in UPSC. Argument is, there is no concept of transparency. There could be a huge delay in terms of giving approvals. So generally in these kinds of concepts or in these kind of programs, government promotes the idea of single window clearance system. Sir, any example of an existing single window clearance system? Yes. Under SEZ policy, Special Economic Zone policy, there is a single window clearance system. Under NIMZ, National Investment Manufacturing Zone, there is a single window clearance system. Meaning, you don't have to run from a ministry to get the approval. There is only one authority which is appointed, or let's say a portal which has been set up. Apply for the approvals there. All the required approvals will be given to you. Now some of you will ask, sir, right, when I log into a portal, how do I know which kind of approvals I will require? Absolutely correct question. Right? How do I know which kind of approval I will require? I don't know. Right? In that particular case, government says, sir, madam, don't worry. Under NSWS, we have a system. There is a proposal which you can use to find out what kind of approvals you will require. For example, under NSWS, there is a questionnaire. There is a questionnaire provided to you. You will have to answer the questions there. And based on the answers that has been provided to you, the website itself will tell you what kind of approvals you will require. Is it okay? What kind of approvals you will require? For example, they will ask you in which sector you want to invest. How much money would you want to invest? Right? What would be, right, this particular scale of investment? What kind of machinery? What kind of products you want to produce? In which region you want to set up manufacturing facility? All these questions are asked, you answer them, and the website will tell you which approvals would you require. That is how under NSWS, the portal will help you in getting the kind of clearances. Now have a look at this. Will provide approvals at the central as well as the state level applications. Of course, statement 1 is correct. We will not only provide single window for the state approval, we will also provide for central approval. Right? So it will provide approvals at state as well as central level. First one is correct. Developed by DPIIT, statement 2 is correct. Third one, the portal will help you in identifying the approvals required for the business. Statement 3 is also correct. In fact, this was there in the current affairs. Please update this. Jammu and Kashmir, J&K, Jammu and Kashmir has become the first union territory to be present on NSWS. J&K has become the first union territory to provide the approvals under NSWS. All the three statements are correct. Right option for this particular question will be option D, 1, 2 and 3. Let me go to the next question. Which of the following is correctly matched? No defaulters, it is a portal. No defaulters, portal. Second, Sambhav. Third one is e-Shram portal. By the way, all the three are correctly matched, right? Whatever I have given here, all the three are correctly matched. e-Shram portal has been launched by Labour Ministry, wherein they want to find out, they basically want to find out the database or create a database for unorganized sector. Right? They want to create a database for unorganized sector workers. So 3 is correctly matched. Sambhav is an awareness program. Sambhav was launched by Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. It is a national level awareness program wherein for certain number of days the training programs were arranged or awareness programs were arranged so that more and more youth will take up entrepreneurship. They will set up more and more MSME units in India. That is the second one. No defaulters portal. No defaulters portal has been set up by Confederation of MSMEs, by a grouping of MSME units, right, or representative confederation of MSME. Under this, if you are registered MSME unit and if the buyer doesn't make the repayment or doesn't make the payment, it defaults, you can upload the details under this particular portal and the portal will help you in getting the recovery done. That is, they will try to mediate, they will try to hold consultation so that you will be able to get the money back or you will get the payment from the buyer as such. Right? That is the basic idea for no defaulters portal. 1, 2 and 3. All the three are correctly matched. Right option will be option D, 1, 2 and 3. Next question. Consider the following statements regarding TReDS. Trade Receivable E-Discounting System. Okay, consider the following statements regarding TReDS, Trade Receivable E-Discounting System. Right, what is this TReDS? TReDS is nothing but a portal or a platform which has been promoted by Reserve Bank of India. RBI promotes this particular platform. In fact, there are various companies which are providing this particular TReDS services now. For example, there is a company called as M1 Exchange. Now, under TReDS platform, what is the basic idea? Imagine a micro enterprise has sold a certain good to a company. Imagine a micro enterprise has sold a certain good to a particular company. And by the way, remember the next point here, micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs definition has changed. Please mug up new definition. The MSME definition has changed. Earlier the definition for earlier the definition for manufacturing and service MSMEs was different. It was different. For example, micro, manufacturing up to 25 lakh, service up to 10 lakh, more than 25 lakh up to 5 crore, more than 5 crore up to 10 crore. Whereas in case of services, more than 10 lakh up to 2 crore, more than 2 crore up to 5 crore, respectively for small and medium enterprises. But now Government of India uses only one definition for both of them, that is MSME, the manufacturing as well as services. Numbers, simple, mug up the numbers. Right, 1 crore, 10 crore, 10 crore, 50 crore, 50 crore, 250 crore. Micro, small and medium. 1, 10, 10, 50, 50, 250. This is the definition. Sir, why are you giving 2 numbers under each one of them? 2 numbers because now MSME definition covers 2 parameters. MSME definition covers 2 parameters. One is investment in plant and machinery. For example, I told you 1 crore initially. 1 crore, right? That is investment in plant and machinery. Then I said 10 crore. That is 10 crore is annual turnover. So 1, 10, 10, 50, 50, 250. Micro, small and medium enterprises. Now looking at the number 250, many of you will put a comment, sir, but my book says it is 100 crore rupees for medium enterprises. You wrongly stated it is 250 crore. Wrong. Initially when it was changed, it was 100 crore, but government again changed it. Today it is 250 crores. So come back to this. Micro enterprise sold certain goods to a company or a public sector undertaking. This is a seller, this is a buyer. Now this particular micro enterprise supposed to receive certain amount. they require money, right? Micro enterprise requires money, right? Say they want to purchase raw material, they want to pay wages to the employees. In that case, what they will do is, they'll simply sell this particular bill. This is called as a receivable. Is it okay? This is called as a receivable. The company is supposed to pay a certain amount, it is called as a receivable. They will sell the receivable to a financier. This financier will pay the money, collect certain charges. Financier pays money, collects charges. And after the number of days are over, they will collect the money from the company or PSU. Right, sir, what is the meaning of this? Imagine the micro enterprise has sold goods worth 10 lakh rupees. So the company or PSU is supposed to pay how much? 10 lakh. So the micro enterprise will sell the receivable to a financier. The financier will pay 10 lakh but collect certain charges, impose charges and collect. Now imagine this, the PSU told the micro enterprise, I will pay the amount after 45 days. They have purchased on 1st January, they will pay it after 45 days. But the micro enterprise requires money on the 10th of January. So in that case, what they can do? Sell the bill, sell the receivable to a financier. Financier will collect the receivable and collect the money after 45 days from the PSU or the company and give 10 lakh rupees on the 10th of January or 11th of January, collect charges from micro enterprise. This system that I have explained just now, it is called as factoring system, factoring services. And this is conducted on a platform which is called as a TReDS. It is conducted on a platform called as a TReDS. Now let's start. Any company, PSU can participate as a seller in the TReDS platform. Focus on this statement very carefully. Any company or PSU can participate as a seller in the TReDS platform. Who is the seller here? Who is the seller in the example? Micro enterprise. A company or PSU is a buyer. Remember this. In the TReDS platform, MSMEs are allowed to purchase. MSMEs are allowed to participate as sellers. Under TReDS platform, MSMEs are allowed to participate as sellers. The companies or PSUs are allowed to participate as buyers. Right? So, if a company sells the goods like this, can they follow TReDS platform? Under TReDS, it is not allowed. It is reserved for MSMEs. So, first statement wrong. The seller must provide a collateral in order to sell the receivable to a financier. Right? Is there any collateral provided here? No collateral provided. So, second statement is also wrong. Right option for this particular question will be option D. Right option for this particular question will be option D, neither one nor two. Neither one is correct nor second one is correct. Let me go to the next question. Consider the following statements. SDRs are currencies issued by IMF, hence are a claim of member countries over IMF. Statement 1 is wrong. SDR stands for special drawing right. I'll repeat. SDR stands for special drawing right. Is SDR a currency? No, it is a reserve asset. It is a reserve asset issued by IMF to its member countries. I will repeat it. SDR is a reserve asset issued by IMF to its member countries. So remember this. This is a reserve asset. From 1969, we have introduced the concept of SDR. In fact, before the collapse of the Bretton Woods, that is a gold standard system, SDR was very, very important. But over a period of time, it is important even today. But compared to earlier situation, SDR has lost its relevance compared to earlier situation. Even today, is it required? Is it important? Yes, it is important. So it is a reserve asset which IMF has started issuing post 1969 to its member countries. So does India hold SDRs? Of course, yes. India holds a lot of these particular SDRs. Does USA hold SDR? Yes. But on what basis SDRs are issued by IMF? It is issued based on the quota that each of the country holds at IMF. I repeat, the number of SDRs are issued by the IMF based on the quota that every member country of IMF holds. Quota, there is a formula. You don't have to mug up the formula. For determining the quota, there is a formula called as a GDP into 0.5 openness, variability, etc. 4 parameters are taken. Then we decide what is the quota of each of the member. And the quota will determine how much SDR units you will get. Quota will also determine what kind of a loans you will be able to avail, right? How much is your reserve tranche, right, etc. Right? So there are so many parameters, and most importantly, voting. Voting rights is also determined based on the quota itself. So have a look at the first statement. STRs are currencies. No, these are not currencies. These cannot be bought and sold in the market like this. You cannot use an STR in India to purchase a good. I cannot do that. First and foremost, STRs cannot be held by individuals. Neither they can be held by Mr. Elon Musk. He might simply say, I want to purchase SDRs. IMF says, sorry, I am not selling it to individuals. It will be only given to member countries of IMF. These are given to governments of countries, not to company, not to individual. Next, IMF issues the STRs in proportion of existing quotas of member countries. Statement 2 is correct. Generally once every 5 years. Right? Generally once every 5 years, the amount of STR would be reviewed. That is, STRs would be reissued or issued to the member countries. So these are the two statements. First one is wrong. Second one is correct. So right option for this particular question will be option B. Only 2 is the correct one. And moreover, remember certain points here. The value of STR is determined on day-to-day basis by IMF. I repeat, value of STR is determined by IMF on day-to-day basis. Everyday basis, IMF will determine what is the value of 1 unit of STR. What is the use of this? First and foremost, whenever RBI will publish the data of forex reserves, remember this, forex reserves is also very often cited in the newspaper. For example, in the last couple of weeks, the forex reserves held by RBI have actually declined. They've actually declined, right? So remember this, forex reserves are held by Reserve Bank of India. What are the components of forex reserves? You have the foreign currency assets. You have foreign currency assets, FCA, that is the first very important component. Then you have gold reserves held by RBI. Then you have the special drawing rights, and the fourth one is the reserve tranche or the gold tranche that every member country holds at IMF. Done. So these are the 4 very important component of forex reserves, and IMF says all of these 4 components calculate and publish the data in terms of dollars. Publish the data in terms of dollars. And very recently, this is there in the newspaper, forex reserves held by RBI have actually declined. And why forex reserves are very important? Understand, the forex reserves are for any country are important because you are continuously importing goods and services. All of you will agree? You are continuously importing goods and services. You need to pay foreign currencies. So forex reserves are required. Or you have borrowed money. You have borrowed money from international agencies. For example, World Bank. Or there are agencies other than World Bank, such as New Development Bank, who have given loan to you. You are supposed to repay. You do not have forex reserves. It will be a problem for you. Right, I've told you this yesterday itself. You might have a printing machine. You are not allowed to print dollars. If you are caught printing dollars, it is illegal. You will be penalized. So have a look at this. You have borrowed money. You are supposed to repay in terms of foreign currency. I'll connect it to one more current affairs point here. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has a huge amount of a debt, borrowing in foreign currencies. But their forex reserves have gone very low level. They have basically crashed like this. Right, and because they have crashed, they do not have forex reserves. Will they be able to repay the loan? No. What they have done? They have defaulted. They simply said, sorry, will not be able to pay, hands up now. Done. So forex reserves are very important. In addition to this particular point, I want to add one more point here. There is a discussion of one more concept called as import cover. There is one more concept called as import cover. Right, that is also there in the economic survey. Please make a note of this. What is the meaning of import cover? Import cover basically defined as for how many months the forex reserves can be utilized to import goods and services. For how many months the forex reserves you have will be sufficient to import goods and services. That is called as import cover. And understand this very carefully. Some of you will be confused here. Follow the discussion next. In the last 1.5 years, the forex reserves of India have increased and the import cover has declined. I will repeat the statement here. In the last 1.5 years, economic survey, the forex reserves have increased, but the import cover has declined. Now some of you will be confused. Sir, how can that happen? How can you calculate import cover here? Imagine you have $100 billion worth of forex reserves. Imagine you have 100 billion. We are discussing here, right? Okay. Imagine you have 100 billion worth of forex reserves. Monthly imports are, let's say, 10 billion. Monthly imports are 10 billion. So what can you do here? Calculate dollar, dollar cancel, billion, billion cancel, 0, 0 cancel. What is left out? 10 months. What is left out is 10 months. That is, in simple terms, these $100 billion worth of forex reserves are sufficient to import for 10 months. But I am saying that the forex reserves have increased, import cover has decreased. Some of you will say, no sir, right, you are wrong. Sunday evening you are talking something, anab shanab bol rahe ho. Please understand this. Can that happen? Yes, it can happen. Have a look at this. I'll use the same calculation. From 100 billion, this has increased to, let's say, 120 billion. The forex reserves have increased from 100 billion to 120 billion. But the denominator, the monthly imports have increased to $15 billion. The monthly imports have increased to $15 billion. Now calculate dollar, dollar cancel, billion, billion cancel, 15 ones are 15 eights are. So 8 months. Right, so with the rise in the forex reserves, look at my statement now. With the rise in the forex reserve, import cover always will increase. Right, I'll repeat the statement. With the rise in the forex reserve, import cover will always increase. Guaranteed? Absolutely no. This is exactly what has happened in the context of India. Forex reserves have increased. The import values also have increased. And as a result of this, import cover has actually come down. Import cover has actually come down. Remember this. Now come back to this. Right, question we have already solved. Okay, done. Right, so next question. Consider the following statements. IMF will provide aid for specific projects just like development banks. I have given this question because of Sri Lanka, issue of Sri Lanka. IMF will provide aid for specific projects just like other development banks. For example, World Bank. World Bank will give you loans for development projects. Does IMF give that? No. IMF says, no, we are not going to give the loans for a specific project. We will provide the loan if a country is facing BoP issue. If a country is facing BoP issue, that is where we will come into picture. We will provide the assistance to you then. Best example, Sri Lanka. Right now they are negotiating with Sri Lanka the loan facility as such. IMF will aid or provide assistance only in case of crisis taking place because of external factors. Understand the statement here, right? Kind of a technical statement. IMF basically says that a crisis in a particular country can be caused because of internal factors as well as external factors. I will repeat the statement here. A crisis in a country can be caused because of internal factors as well as external factors. Sir, what do you mean by that? External factors, imagine there is a sudden rise in the crude oil prices. Sudden rise. And when there is a sudden rise of crude oil prices, what will happen? If you are a country such as India, you will import the crude, you will start paying more and more money for that. You will start paying higher amount of dollars. As a result of that, forex reserves will keep on declining. You might eventually go for BoP crisis. So IMF says, I will come. I will provide you assistance. What about internal factors? The member country, the government has made a faulty policy, the central banker has prepared and implemented a very bad policy, as a result of which economy has got destabilized. Foreign investments are continuously going outside. Forex reserves will start depleting. That is a crisis of internal nature, or internal factors have led to crisis. IMF simply says the crisis can happen because of internal factors as well as external factors. Right? In fact, many of the times more than one factor is affecting and there is a crisis. IMF says I will give assistance in all these situations. I will provide you aid under both, the crisis which can happen because of internal factor as well as external factor. So second statement is wrong. because it says only in case of the crisis taking place because of external factors. Statement is wrong, by the way. So 1 and 2 are wrong. Right option for this particular question will be option D, neither 1 nor 2. Let me go to the next question here. Consider the following statements regarding green deposits. Very recently, many of the banks in India have started providing the services of green deposits. Do not be confused between green bonds and green deposits. Green bonds are bond instrument. The green deposits are just like a fixed deposit. It is just like a fixed deposit. But the scope of a green deposit is slightly higher. It is slightly higher. Why? Apart from investing in green infrastructure project, the government simply says, or the policy is that you can invest in any project which falls under SDG, Sustainable Development Goal category. I will repeat the statement. In case of the green deposits, the money that is collected by the bank, they can invest that in any of the projects which will fall under the Sustainable Development category goals as such, or Sustainable Development Goals. Right, under United Nations, earlier there was a Millennium Development Goals. After that, we have introduced the concept of Sustainable Development Goals, which are much larger in number. Right, so any of the projects which are covered under SDG, you can provide financing for that. That is a concept of green deposits. That is the idea of a green deposit. Just like any deposit. But now the bank simply says, I will prove that these deposits that I have collected, I have not given this as a loan to a civil aviation company. I have not given this as a loan to a service sector company like I used to do earlier. I will prove that I have given this particular loan for certain projects which are covered under SDG. Right, so first statement is correct. Second one, these deposits are available only for corporate customers. No. These are available for both retail as well as corporate customers. Done. So first one is correct. Second one is wrong. Right option for this particular question will be option A. Only one is correct. Let me go to the next question now. Consider the following statements regarding strategic petroleum reserves. Strategic petroleum reserves. SPRs. Strategic petroleum reserves. Now, what is this idea of a strategic petroleum reserve? Government of India, just like many other governments, has constructed a reserve. Reserve means a storage capacity for storing the crude oil, by purchasing the crude oil and storing it. And whenever there is an emergency situation, they will withdraw the crude oil from these particular storage spaces as such. This facility which has been developed is called as a strategic petroleum reserve, SPR. And for maintaining, this particular strategic petroleum reserve, Government of India has set up a special purpose vehicle. An authority has been set up. This is an SPV which will manage these particular strategic petroleum reserves. Now understand this. Under the first phase, we constructed around 5.3 MMT space of a strategic petroleum reserve. We have constructed around 5.3 MMTs worth of storage capacity under the strategic petroleum reserve. And now we are in the process of constructing the second phase under the strategic petroleum reserve. We are in the process of constructing in the second phase, under which we want to construct another 6.5 MMT worth of the storage facility as such. Under the first phase, we constructed the facilities at Visakhapatnam, Padur and Mangalore. These are the three places where the facility has been constructed: Visakhapatnam, Padur and Mangalore. And under the second phase, we are targeting 6.5 MMT. One is in Padur and the second one is Chandikol, that is in Odisha. Padur is in Karnataka and Chandikol is in Odisha. Right, so these are some of the very important points regarding the concept of strategic petroleum reserves. It is maintained by NHSRCL. This is not an SPV related to strategic petroleum reserve. This is a SPV which has been set up by Government of India to basically implement the high-speed railway project, that is bullet train project. This is an SPV which has been set up by Government of India to to basically implement the bullet train project. The first statement is wrong. SPRs, right, are stored at Vishakhapatnam, Padur and Mangalore. Second statement is correct, by the way. So based on this analysis, the right option will be option B for this question given here. Let me go to the next question. Which of the following are considered as offences under the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act? Right, many of you would have read about this particular terminology, but UPSC might ask you a question on this. In the last couple of months, yes, this particular terminology has been used in the newspaper in the context of many of the economic offenders as such. First and foremost, what do you mean by a fugitive economic offender? Right? What do you mean by fugitive economic offender? Under this particular act, understand this, under this particular act, more than 50 types of offences have been listed. Okay? More than 50 types of offences have been listed. Sir, can you give us some examples? These are some examples. These are some examples. There are around 50 to 55 types of offences, economic offences, which are listed. And if you commit any of these offences and you take your passport, run out of India, not literally, you will fly out of India and you settle somewhere outside India, and there is an arrest warrant issued in your name in India. I will repeat the statement here. There are more than 50 to 55 offences which are listed under the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. If you commit any of these offences and you move out of India, settle outside India, and there is basically a warrant, arrest warrant which has been issued in your name, then under this particular act you will be classified as fugitive economic offender. I repeat, under this particular act you will be classified as a fugitive economic offender. And what is the impact of this? Once you are classified as a fugitive economic offender, whatever assets you have in India, government will try to confiscate those assets. Is it okay? Whatever assets you have in India, the government will try to confiscate all of these particular assets. That is the basic idea of a Fugitive Economic Offenders Act. So which of the following are considered as offences under the act? Check dishonor? Yes. Money laundering? Yes. Counterfeiting government currency notes? Yes. All the three are very few, just the 3 out of 55 offences listed under this. So right option for this particular question will be option D, 1, 2 and 3. Okay. Next, which of the following are likely outcomes of Russia and Ukraine war? Which of the following are likely outcomes of Russia and Ukraine war? First, rising freight charges. Rising charges of, let's say, transportation of goods across countries now. Has it increased? Yes, it has increased. Some of you will be wondering, sir, if Russia and Ukraine are fighting, why will the freight transportation increase? Multiple reasons. For example, imagine the freight transportation was happening through these particular sea routes, and within this particular seas now the fight is going on, the war is going on. Now as a result of this, the freight movement becomes very difficult, restricted, or the company which is going to provide the services, now they'll say we are taking more risk, you pay us more money. Or else, sir, this is very difficult for me to understand. Let me give you another simple example. Because of the fight between Russia and Ukraine, the crude oil prices have increased. Crude oil prices have increased. And when the crude oil prices increase, what will happen to cost of transportation? Cost of transportation increases. That is what I have written here. Rising freight charges. In fact, this has actually happened. It is not even likely. This has actually happened. Rising inflation in India. Right? This is where the confusion will become much more. Sir, the Russia and Ukraine are fighting. Let them fight. I am sitting far away, comfortable in my home under AC, sipping a cup of coffee. Tell me why inflation will happen in India because both are fighting there. It should not happen because we are not connected with them. It happens thanks to the idea of globalization. I am pretty sure you have heard of the globalization, liberalization, privatization and globalization. And under globalization, what has happened? Integration of the economies has actually increased. Indian economy has become more and more integrated with global economy. And because there is an event that is taking place in a global economy, India, whether it likes or not, will be affected. I can understand whether we like it or not doesn't matter. The economy doesn't function on our liking as such. So India will be affected no matter what. But will it be affected in terms of inflation? Yes, it will be affected. For example, fuel prices. Right, the fuel prices have started increasing, and when the fuel prices will increase, we are major importer. Now some of you will simply say, sir, I read that India is importing cheaper oil from Russia. So your point is wrong. We are importing cheaper oil. Please understand. Yes, we have agreed to import cheaper oil from Russia. We are taking the advantage of the situation now. But are we importing all the oil that is imported into India from Russia? You tell me the answer. Are we importing every barrel of oil that comes into India? Are we importing from Russia? Absolutely no. In fact, only around 1 to 2% of the oil that we import comes from Russia. What about the Brent crude prices? They have skyrocketed. We are supposed to pay more. Cost of the imports increases. Inflation will also take place in India. India's current account deficit may rise. Of course, yes. It might happen. Right? Again, it might rise. Linkage is very simple. We import fertilizer. These countries export fertilizer. Example, Russia and Belarus, or Ukraine for that matter. Russia exports crude oil. Russia exports a lot of commodities to the international market. Right? So what happens because of this? The commodity prices in the international market have increased. Crude oil prices have increased. Right? As a result of this, right, the imports into India have become costlier. Fertilizer prices have increased. Current account deficit may rise. Third one is correct. Fourth one, rising cost of fuel imports. I've already given this as an example in multiple scenarios. Fourth statement is also correct. So 1, 2, 3 and 4 are correct. Right option for this particular question will be option D, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let me go to the next question. Consider the following statements regarding DLI, Designed Linked Incentive Scheme. Simple concept here. Government of India, in order to promote the production of semiconductors, production, has introduced or has launched Design Linked Incentive Scheme. It has been launched by the Minister of Textile to promote exports. No, this has been launched by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, MEITY, MEITY. So first statement is wrong. It is being implemented for a period of 5 years. Statement is true. The tenure for this particular scheme is 5 years. Under this particular scheme, have a look at this. There are different types of incentive structures. For example, there is a production design linked incentive. There is a deployment linked incentive. Different types of incentives have been announced by the government to promote the manufacturing of semiconductors. In India. Right? So that is the basic idea of design linked incentive or design linked incentive scheme. It is being implemented for a period of 5 years. Statement 2 is correct. Right option for this question will be option B, only 2. Done? Next question. Consider the following statements. Quarterly employment surveys, QES, is a part of PLFS. Some of you might be thinking, great. Neither do I know what is QES, nor do I know what is PLFS. Wonderful. Now understand this. Whenever government wants to make a policy in terms of, let's say, employment, they need data. All of you agree? They need data. What kind of data? They should know how many jobs are getting created, what kind of jobs in numbers are available, and they should also know, right, in households how many people are getting jobs. You should be able to get the complete picture in terms of supply of jobs, in terms of demand of jobs. How can I come to know? If I conduct surveys in the houses, from the households, if I collect data, I'll be able to get to know employment from the demand side. I'll be able to know how many people are getting jobs, right? How many in a house are employed, how many are unemployed. That is from demand side. But if I calculate, right, the numbers from the companies, if I go to a company, ask them, okay, How many jobs have you created in the last 3 months? In the last quarter, tell me. Which kind of job have you created? Tell me. Did you create a job in manufacturing? Did you create a job in other areas such as, let's say, construction? Did you create a job in transportation, etc.? Where have you created the jobs? How many jobs? Give me the data. So that will be supply side information. So remember this, to collect the data from both the demand side as well as supply side, 2 surveys are conducted by the government. I repeat, to get the idea of how much is the demand side, right, in terms of employment, how much is the supply side in terms of employment, 2 surveys are conducted. That is, whenever you discuss the demand side, the government conducts a survey, PLFS, Periodic Labor Force Surveys, PLFS, Periodic Labor Force Surveys. And whenever the government wants to know the data regarding or wants to get the data regarding supply side of employment, they will conduct a survey by the name of AQEES. AQEES, AQEES. That is All India, right? All India Establishment Based Employment Surveys. All India Quarterly Establishment Based Employment Surveys. Under AQEES, there is a survey called as QES, Quarterly Employment Surveys. Okay, Quarterly Employment Survey. And there is also one more, Area Frame Establishment Survey. Area Frame Establishment Survey. So one is PLFS, Periodic Labor Force Survey, which is conducted quarterly, which is conducted annually also. Which is conducted quarterly, which is conducted annually. By whom? By NSO, National Statistical Office, which functions under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And what about this side? All India Quarterly Establishment Based Employment Surveys, right? This is done by Labour Bureau. This is conducted by Labour Bureau, right? Under the Ministry of Labour. Under the Ministry of Labour, simply remember Ministry of Labour now. Now, under the AQEES, I said there are 2 different types of surveys again. One is quarterly establishment surveys, right, or quarterly employment surveys. And the second one is area frame establishment surveys, right. Now, what is the basic difference here? Under the QES, I will basically collect the data from those enterprises where the number of employees are 10 or more. Where the number of employees are 10 or more. Whereas in case of AFES, I will collect the employment data from those units which have less than 10 employees. Less than 10 employees in a unit. In simple terms, this will get the data of employment generation from organized sector. This will get the data from unorganized sector. That is the basic idea here. Now look at the question. Look at the question. Consider the following statements. Quarterly employment surveys is a part of PLFS. Wrong. Quarterly employment surveys is a part of AQEES. AQEES will provide the demand side information of the labor, demand side or supply side. AQEES will provide the supply side labor information. PLFS will provide the demand side labor information. Second statement is also wrong. So right option for this particular question will be option D, neither 1 nor 2. Done? So these are the various questions that I wanted to discuss with you people regarding the various chapters. And if you have seen the kind of questions I have framed in this particular discussion, these are from areas such as infrastructure, areas such as employment and unemployment, international trade, exchange rate, industries, etc. So for the last 4, including this, in the last 4 classes, we have discussed a lot of questions from all the important areas under the Indian economy. With this particular the lecture, we have completed all the 4 lectures or all the 4 classes, right, for Indian economy. All the best to all of you people. If you have not yet subscribed to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS, kindly consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And please do inform about these initiatives to your friends also, who can get the benefit from these kind of lectures. Thank you. Have a great day. All the best to all of you.